And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the future of silk. Chairman Guo's voice echoed through the five-star hotel ballroom, the sound amplified by an expensive speaker system that sounded as sharp as glass. A masterpiece of innovation, a legacy for generations to come. I am honored to introduce the genius inventor, the chief architect of the Phoenix Fire technology. My son, Guofeng. My world collapsed in a moment of silence that lasted an eternity, before applause erupted like thunder. I stood in the front row, the seat of honor reserved for the person who should have been on that stage. I clapped. My hands moved like a machine, creating a hollow sound that merged with the room's manufactured joy. My name is Lin Wei. I am 35 years old, and I had just watched 7 years of my life, 7 years of sleepless nights, of fingers calloused from handling silk threads, of 1,000 failures and a single, final success get packaged and handed to a 25-year-old kid who had never known the difference between raw and refined silk. Guofeng strode onto the stage, his designer suit gleaming, a smug smile on his face as if he had just conquered Mount Everest, not stolen it. The flash of cameras went off like dying stars. The ballroom reeked of expensive perfume and deceit. I had dedicated a quarter of my life to the Heavenly Cloud workshop. I came here when it was still a struggling studio, bringing with me the dream of reviving the art of Suzhou silk weaving. It was I who proposed the project, combining ancient brocade techniques with modern molecular dyeing technology. It was I who named it Phoenix Fire, because the finished silk could change colors under different angles of light, as brilliant as the plumage of the mythical bird reborn from ashes. For 7 years, I lived in the laboratory, breathing in the scent of chemicals and silk fibers, neglecting family and friends. Chairman Guo always patted my shoulder. "Lin Wei, you are our most precious asset," he would say. "The day of our success will be the day all of Suzhou carves your name in stone." Now, the name being carved was not mine. "Guofeng has demonstrated an extraordinary vision," Chairman Guo continued, draping an arm over his son's shoulder with theatrical pride. "He brought a fresh perspective, a breakthrough mindset that seasoned artisans sometimes lack. Another knife, straight to the heart." Seasoned artisans, that's what he called me now. I was just a tool, an old craftsman whose usefulness had expired after the treasure was made. Guofeng, who had only visited the lab a few times to take selfies, was now the architect. I looked at him, he caught my eye and gave a slight nod, the condescending nod of a superior granting favor to a subordinate. For a second, I wanted to scream, to overturn everything, to expose this lie before hundreds of eyes. But I didn't. A cold anger settled in my chest, sharp and silent. It didn't roar. It waited. The press conference ended. People swarmed around Guofeng, their congratulations flowing like a flood. I quietly gathered my notepad, moving slower than usual. My mind had never been so clear, like a lake after a storm, perfectly still and reflecting everything with flawless clarity. "Lin Wei." Chairman Guo's voice came from behind me as I reached the door. "Stay for a minute." We stood alone in the empty conference room. The smell of the after-party was nauseating. He loosened his silk tie, an old product of Heavenly Cloud, not Phoenix Fire, and tried to look friendly. "I know this might come as a bit of a surprise," he began. "But you have to understand, this is for the greater good. The reputation of a young inventor, the chairman's son, will bring far more brand value than that of an artisan." "So what is the value of 7 years?" I asked, my voice terrifyingly even. "It's stability," he answered immediately. "You will continue to be our technical pillar. We will establish a Phoenix Fire Innovation Center. Feng will be the director. You will be the deputy director, in charge of all professional operations. You'll still have power, still have a high income. Nothing changes, only the name on the title." He thought I was a fool. A deputy director meant to support a clueless director, a slave given a golden collar. "I understand," I said. He let out a sigh of relief. "Good. I knew you were a reasonable man. That's why you're such a valuable member of the team." Valuable. Not valuable enough to be recognized, but valuable enough to clean up the mess his son would inevitably make. I looked him straight in the eyes of an old fox who had calculated every move. He had sized me up, weighing my loyalty, my compliance, and the financial burdens he assumed I had. He believed I would bow my head. He was wrong. I walked back to my workshop, the place I had called home for 7 years. The familiar scent of silk welcomed me. I sat down at the loom where the very first piece of Phoenix Fire silk was born. I touched it, feeling the softness and life in every thread. This was not the product of a company. This was a piece of my soul, and they thought they could steal it with a press conference. I opened my laptop. My hands were perfectly steady. My heart was no longer racing. There was only a deadly calm. I didn't write a resignation letter. I wrote an email. A single email, sent to a single address. Then, I began to compose another letter, this one by hand, addressed to Chairman Guo. Outside, the city of Suzhou was celebrating the young genius Guo Feng. They didn't know that the phoenix they were praising was about to set itself on fire, and this time, there would be no rebirth. The next morning, the air at Heavenly Cloud Workshop was thick with a strange tension. People looked at me with a mixture of pity and curiosity. Whispers died down as I passed, only to rise again behind my back like an undercurrent. I heard words like unfair and poor guy, but no one dared to say anything to my face. They were afraid. They were afraid of the power that had been so brazenly displayed the day before. I ignored them all and went straight to my lab. Everything was the same, but it felt different. It was no longer a sanctuary of creation, but a crime scene, and I was the victim. Guo Feng arrived at 10 o'clock, 2 hours late, reeking of alcohol from the previous night's celebration. He walked around the room, touching the equipment like a king inspecting his domain. Lin Wei, he called out, his tone patronizing. My father said you'll be reporting directly to me from now on. Good. I need you to prepare a summary of the entire Phoenix Fire process. Keep it simple, something a layman can understand. You want a summary? I asked, not looking up from a stack of papers. Yes. And a list of chemical suppliers, the loom specifications, everything. I need to get the whole picture. He said the whole picture as if it were a new toy. Very well, I said. You'll have it. He seemed pleased. Good. I have a golf game with some partners this afternoon. I'm counting on you to handle things here, Deputy Director Lin. He emphasized the words Deputy Director with a mocking smile before leaving. The gilded cage Chairman Guo had prepared for me was worse than the public humiliation. He wanted to turn me into a tiger with its claws and teeth removed, keeping the majestic skin for display, but with only powerlessness inside. He needed my knowledge to run the machine and my silence to legitimize his lie. He thought a handsome salary and a hollow title would bind me. I spent the morning organizing my research materials. 7 years of work, hundreds of notebooks, thousands of data files. Every failed formula, every incorrect parameter was a step on the path to success. I copied everything onto a portable hard drive. This was the journal of my life. I couldn't leave it here. At noon, I was summoned to Chairman Guo's office. Orientation meeting for the Phoenix Fire Innovation Center, the subject line read. In the lavish meeting room, there were only 3 people. Me, Chairman Guo, and a lawyer. Guo Feng was not there. Lin Wei, Chairman Guo began, without any preamble. To ensure the sustainable development of the Phoenix Fire technology, the company has decided we need clearer agreements. This is a new employment contract and a non-disclosure agreement. Please take a look. The lawyer pushed a thick stack of papers towards me. I glanced at it. The terms were suffocating. I would be prohibited from working in the textile industry for 10 years after leaving Heavenly Cloud. Every invention, no matter how small, made during my employment would belong to the company. And most importantly, I had to sign a statement acknowledging Guo Feng as the primary inventor of the Phoenix Fire technology, with my role being only technical support. It was a death sentence for my career. They didn't just want to steal my past, they wanted to erase my future. Chairman, I said, pushing the contract back. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. What misunderstanding? He raised an eyebrow. I won't be signing this. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. The lawyer cleared his throat. Chairman Guo stared at me, the smile on his face vanishing. You should think carefully, Lin Wei. This is a generous offer. Don't make a foolish decision over a little bruised ego. This isn't about ego, I replied, my voice still calm. This is about the truth. And the truth is, without me, the Phoenix Fire will never fly. Don't overestimate yourself, he growled. We have the documents, the procedures. You are not irreplaceable. Is that so? I smiled for the first time in 2 days. A genuine smile, but it carried no warmth, only ice. Then perhaps the chairman doesn't need me anymore. The letter I left on your desk this morning made everything clear. His expression changed. He clearly hadn't read it. What letter? My resignation letter. Effective today. Silence fell. The lawyer looked flustered. Chairman Guo shot up from his chair, his face crimson with rage. How dare you? After everything we've done for you? You think you can just walk away? I can, I said, standing up. My work here is done. The rest, I leave to your genius director. I turned and walked to the door. You will regret this, Lin Wei. His voice hissed behind me. I will make sure you never work in this industry again. I will sue you for everything you're worth. I didn't answer. I just walked. I knew this was only the beginning. The real war was about to start. But as I stepped out of the heavenly cloud building and breathed the free air of Suzhou, I felt no fear. I felt relief. The gilded cage was open. The tiger had been released back into the wild, and it had not lost its claws. I spent the next 2 days cutting off all contact. I turned off my phone, didn't check my email. I needed silence to put everything in order, not just the documents I had brought with me, but the shattered pieces of my soul. I sat in my small apartment overlooking an ancient Suzhou canal, where wooden boats drifted lazily by, carrying a piece that had lasted for centuries. A piece that I had lost. On the third day, I turned my phone back on. Dozens of missed calls from Heavenly Cloud, from their lawyers, and from unknown numbers I assumed were journalists. My inbox was flooded with legal threats, accusing me of breach of contract and stealing trade secrets. They were trying to build a narrative that I was a disgruntled, jealous employee with intent to sabotage. I ignored it all and called my lawyer, Mr. Chen, an old family friend and the only person I trusted. "Are you ready, Mr.?" Chen asked as soon as he picked up, his voice grave. "The storm is about to hit." "I've been ready for 7 years, Uncle Chen," I replied. That afternoon, I had a meeting, not with lawyers or journalists. I arranged to meet Chairman Guo. I had called him myself. He refused at first, but I said only one sentence. "We need to talk about the quality of the first batch of Phoenix Fire silk." He agreed to meet immediately. We met at a quiet tea house by the lake. He came alone, his face stern and hostile. "What do you want, Lin Wei?" He got straight to the point. "Come back to beg?" "It's too late." "I didn't come to beg," I said, slowly pouring tea into 2 small cups. "I came to offer a friendly warning." "A warning?" He scoffed. "In what position are you to warn me?" I pushed a cup of tea towards him. "How is the first batch of silk coming along, Chairman? Has Guofeng started production?" The smugness on his face faltered slightly. "That is none of your business." "Oh, but it is," I said, "because I'm guessing it failed, miserably. Were the colors wrong? Or did the silk turn hard as canvas after dyeing?" He didn't answer, but his silence was a confession. I knew exactly what had happened. The process I had left in the documents was perfect, but it was missing one piece. The most important piece. "Chairman Guo," I continued, my voice still even. "You are a brilliant businessman. You understand profit, you understand the market, but you don't understand silk. Silk has a soul. The Phoenix Fire technique isn't just about machines and chemicals. It needs something else." "A catalyst." "What catalyst?" he snapped. "All the formulas are in the documents." "No, not all of them." I took a thin folder from my briefcase and placed it on the table. "This is patent certificate number ZL2023100589X, issued by the National Intellectual Property Administration. Inventor's name, Lin Wei. Name of invention, organic color, stabilizing compound for silk protein fibers." Chairman Guo snatched the folder, his old eyes squinting to read. His face went from red to deathly pale in a matter of seconds. What is this?" he stammered. "That is my ace in the hole," I explained. "It's the formula for the catalyst. I researched it in parallel with Phoenix Fire, using my own funds, on my own time. And I filed for a personal patent 2 years ago. I always hoped I would never have to use it. I always believed in your promises." I paused, letting the truth sink in. "Without this catalyst, the dyeing process destroys the protein structure of the silk fiber. The color will be blotchy, and the fabric will lose its inherent softness. It becomes a worthless piece of cloth, a dead phoenix." Chairman Guo leaned back in his chair, his breathing heavy. The old fox finally realized he had walked into a trap he never knew existed. You planned this all along?" "I call it foresight," I replied. "I gave Heavenly Cloud the best 7 years of my life. In return, you tried to take everything from me. My name, my career, my future. Did you think I wouldn't prepare an escape route?" He was silent for a long time, trying to regain his composure. "How much do you want?" he finally asked. "Money? Shares? The position of director that you deserve?" "It's too late for that, Chairman," I said, standing up. "I want nothing from Heavenly Cloud anymore. This patent is not for sale." "Then what do you want?" he almost shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "Do you want to destroy everything?" "No," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "I want to rebuild, but not on a rotten foundation of lies. I just want you to know that your phoenix will never fly without me. And from now on, I will fly in my own sky." I placed the money for the tea on the table and left, leaving Chairman Guo alone with the patent folder and an empire on the brink of collapse. I knew he wouldn't give up. He would sue, he would use every trick to try and invalidate my patent, but I was ready. The ace had been played. The real game had just begun. My departure and the existence of the patent created an earthquake within Heavenly Cloud Workshop. Although Chairman Guo tried to cover it up, the news leaked out. $1 million orders for Phoenix Fire silk were put on hold. Partners began asking questions. The pressure fell squarely on the shoulders of Guo Feng, who now had to prove he was worthy of the genius title his father had bestowed upon him. I didn't need to be there to witness the chaos. I could picture it. Guo Feng, in his panic and arrogance, tried to recreate the catalyst himself. He ordered the lab to test every possible compound, based on the fragmented notes he had. The result was a disaster. An old friend still working in the lab called me secretly. His voice was filled with exhaustion and despair. "Lin Wei, you can't imagine it. We've ruined 3 batches of premium raw silk. Each batch is worth a fortune. The silk comes out of the dyeing machine looking like a pile of rags. The color is splotchy like a child's painting, and it feels as rough as sandpaper to the touch." Guo Feng just keeps yelling, blaming the staff, the machines, anything but himself. Meanwhile, Chairman Guo launched an all-out legal war. His team of lawyers filed a lawsuit against me, accusing me of intellectual property theft, claiming my patent was actually developed with Heavenly Cloud's resources and therefore belonged to the company. Simultaneously, a dirty media campaign was launched. Anonymous articles appeared, painting me as an opportunist, a failed scientist jealous of the success of the young genius Guo Feng. They even dug into my private life, trying to find any stain to tarnish my name. I had anticipated this. With the help of my lawyer, Mr. Chen, I was prepared. My records were clean. Every expense for the catalyst research, from purchasing chemicals to renting external analysis equipment, was paid from my personal account. The research logs were meticulously kept, time-stamped by a third party. The legal battle would be long and costly, but I was confident I would win. What hurt more were the colleagues who turned their backs on me. Under pressure from Chairman Guo, some of them testified against me, saying they had seen me working on a personal project during work hours. They were lies, but they still cut deep. In the midst of this storm, I received numerous offers from Heavenly Cloud's competitors. They promised high positions, huge salaries, and full support in my legal battle. They only wanted one thing: my patent. They wanted me to help them create their own version of Phoenix Fire to crush Heavenly Cloud. I refused them all. Why? Lawyer Chen asked me during a meeting. It's the easiest path. You could partner with them, get money, and have powerful backing. Because it wouldn't solve the root problem, Uncle Chen, I replied. If I did that, I'd be no different from Chairman Guo. I would just be turning a beautiful technology into a weapon in a corporate war. Its soul would die. The Suzhou silk industry wouldn't be better off. It would just have more sharks fighting over the same prey. I didn't want to become another shark. I was an artisan. I wanted to create beauty, not destruction. One afternoon, wandering through the old quarters of Suzhou, I passed by the small alleys where family-run weaving workshops once thrived. Now, most of them were shuttered and silent. The rise of industrial giants like Heavenly Cloud had strangled them. They couldn't compete on price, and they lacked the resources to innovate. All they had left were their skills and a fading passion. I stopped in front of a small workshop that still had its lights on. Inside, an old man with silver hair was diligently working at an ancient loom. It was Master Zhang, one of the finest brocade weavers I had ever known. I had come to learn from him when I was young. I stepped inside. He looked up, his old eyes recognizing me. "Little Wei," he said, his voice deep and warm. "This old man has heard about your troubles. A phoenix trapped in a cage." "It has escaped, Master," I said, bowing my head in respect. "But its wings are not yet ready to fly." We sat and drank tea amidst rolls of silk. Master Zhang didn't ask much about my fight. He just talked about the craft, about the soul of the silk thread, about the joy of creating a work of art with one's own hands. He spoke of his sadness seeing young people no longer interested in the trade, how exquisite techniques were slowly being lost. "The big machines can weave faster, but they have no heart," he said. "They create products, not masterpieces." Listening to his words, an idea sparked in my mind. A bold, crazy idea, but one full of hope. It wasn't about revenge against Heavenly Cloud. It was about something much bigger. I looked around Master Zhang's small, old but cozy workshop. I looked at his skillful hands. I didn't need to join a giant corporation. I could create my own. Not a corporation of machines, but of hearts. "Master Zhang," I said, my voice filled with excitement, "if I had a way to make these looms once again weave silks that would astound the world, would you be willing to join me?" He looked at me, a spark of hope I hadn't seen in a long time lighting up his old eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I replied, "one phoenix cannot fly alone. But a flock of phoenixes can cover the entire sky. The ashes of Heavenly Cloud were still cold, but from them, a new fire was beginning to smolder. My idea was simple yet incredibly complex: to unite the small, scattered, and forgotten craft workshops of Suzhou into an alliance. I would provide the weapon my catalyst, patent, and modern technological knowledge. They would contribute the soul, their masterful hand-weaving skills and ancestral secrets. Together, we would create a new line of silk, one that perfectly blended traditional essence with technological breakthroughs, a product that no mass production factory could ever replicate. But it was easier said than done. These artisans were proud people, but they were also deeply skeptical. They had been squeezed by large corporations like Heavenly Cloud for too long. They had seen too many empty promises. To them, I, someone who had just walked out of the enemy's camp, was also suspect. The first person I needed to convince was Master Zhang. He was the most respected figure among the remaining artisans. If I had his support, my path would be much smoother. I spent a week at his workshop. I didn't talk much about my plan. Instead, I worked. I sat at the loom, spun thread, dyed fabric. I showed him that even after working with modern machinery, I hadn't forgotten the roots of the craft. I showed him my research notebooks, not just on chemistry, but on the history of ancient patterns, on the structure of different types of silk. Finally, one evening, as we were examining a test batch of fabric dyed with my catalyst, he spoke. "It's truly magical," he marveled, stroking the soft silk, its colors shimmering under the lamp. "The colors are so vibrant, yet the thread retains its original softness. How did you do it?" "With science, and with respect for the heritage of masters like you," I replied. "I believe we can combine both. We can create silks that tell the stories of 1,000 years of history, but in the language of the future." I laid out my plan in detail. We wouldn't form a single company. We would be an alliance, the Suzhou Artisans Guild. Each workshop would maintain its independence, its ownership. I wouldn't take a single penny for my patent. Instead, I proposed a fair profit-sharing model. I would be responsible for R&D, quality control, and marketing. They would focus on what they did best, creating art. Master Zhang was silent for a long time. He looked at his own calloused hands, then at the loom that had been in his family for generations. "All my life," he said softly, "I have only hoped that one day these skills would not be lost. I feared that by my grandchildren's generation, they would only know industrial silk. If what you say is true, if we can really do this, then this old man will give it his all." Having Master Zhang's support was a turning point. He vouched for me, gathering 12 other workshop owners for a meeting. The meeting took place in an ancient ancestral hall. The atmosphere was initially tense. They eyed me with suspicion. Some questioned my past at Heavenly Cloud. Others feared this was just another trick by a large corporation to swallow them whole. I didn't argue. I let them have their say. Then, I took out a sample of Phoenix Fire silk that I had personally woven and dyed with my catalyst at Master Zhang's workshop. I spread it out in the middle of the room. Under the dim light of the hall, the silk came alive with a magical glow. The hidden phoenix patterns appeared and disappeared, shifting in color from golden yellow to crimson red as I tilted the fabric. It was as soft as water, as light as mist. Everyone fell silent. They were master craftsmen. With a single touch, a single look, they could recognize the class of this silk. They moved closer, touching it, caressing it like a treasure. This is the pinnacle of the craft," one of them breathed. "And this is what we can create together," I said. "Heavenly Cloud has machines, but they have no soul. They have Guofeng, but they don't have you. We have something that money can't buy. We have heritage, talent, and a love for every single thread. With my technology and your skills, we won't just revive our craft, we will redefine what luxury silk island." The meeting lasted late into the night. We debated everything, from naming the designs to dividing the work. Gradually, skepticism melted away, replaced by enthusiasm and hope. For the first time in years, I saw fire in their eyes, the fire of artists being given a chance to shine once more. That night, the Suzhou Artisans Guild was officially born. 13 small workshops, 13 families, and one outcast scientist. We signed an agreement, not with dry legal clauses, but with trust and a handshake. Meanwhile, Chairman Guo was still busy with lawsuits and failed batches of silk. He had no idea that right under the feet of his empire, an army of artisans was quietly assembling. We might be small, but we were united. And we had a secret weapon he could never replicate, the heart of the artisan. Forming the alliance was just the first step. Turning it into a smoothly functioning operation was a completely different challenge. The next few weeks were the most frantic of my life. I ran back and forth between the 13 workshops scattered throughout Suzhou's ancient alleys. Each workshop had its own specialty. Master Zhang's workshop excelled in jacquard weaving. Another was a master of taffeta. One family held the secret to exquisite double-sided embroidery. The problem was how to combine all these talents, to standardize the production process without losing the unique identity of each artisan. The biggest challenge was integrating my technology into a manual environment. My catalyst required absolute precision in temperature and timing, but these workshops didn't have the modern sensors of Heavenly Cloud. They worked based on experience, feeling by hand, observing by eye. I had to simplify my process. I created simple measurement kits, color-matching charts, and spent hours personally guiding each one of them. There were failures. A batch was overheated, ruining a precious piece of silk. An elderly artisan, accustomed to traditional methods, refused to follow the new procedure, claiming this scientific stuff was ruining the art. There were arguments, moments of frustration. But Master Zhang was always there, using his authority to mediate and encourage everyone. Change is always difficult, he'd say, but if we don't change, we will die. Slowly, things began to fall into place. The first silks from the alliance were born. They weren't as flawless as machine-made products, but they possessed a different kind of beauty. You could feel the touch of the human hand in every pattern, the warmth of the artisan's soul in every color. We no longer called it Phoenix Fire. We gave it a new name, Cloud Brocade. While we were quietly building, Heavenly Cloud was still sinking in crisis. News of their failed batches and the lawsuit against me had spread. Their stock price plummeted. Chairman Guo, in his desperation, did something I hadn't expected. He hired a team of chemical experts from abroad, hoping they could crack the formula for my catalyst. It was a costly gamble, and it showed he still didn't understand the problem. He still believed everything could be solved with money. One day, while I was at Master Zhang's workshop, a stranger appeared. He was well-dressed and introduced himself as a representative from the largest raw material supplier in the region. "Mr. Lin," he said, "I hear you're working on a very interesting project. We'd love to collaborate. However, there's a small problem." "What problem?" I asked. "Heavenly Cloud is our biggest client," he explained, his tone full of implication. "They have reminded us that supplying premium raw silk to small workshops could affect our long-term relationship with them. Chairman Guo was trying to cut off our lifeline. Without high-quality raw silk, we couldn't produce Cloud Brocade. It was a vicious blow, aimed directly at our weak point." The artisans in the alliance were panicked. "It's over," one said. "Without silk, what are we supposed to weave?" I wasn't scared. I had anticipated this move. "It's all right," I told everyone in an emergency meeting. "If they won't sell us silk, we'll create our own." Everyone looked at me as if I were crazy. I explained, "we will go to the silkworm farmers. We will partner directly with them, building an exclusive supply chain. We will pay them a fair price, higher than what the big factories are paying, and in return, they will provide us with the best quality cocoons, raised according to our standards." It was a plan even more ambitious than forming the alliance. But adversity breeds opportunity. This would not only solve our material problem, it would also allow us to control quality from the source and create an even stronger brand story, a product that was truly from farm to loom. Master Zhang and I spent a month traveling through the rural areas around Suzhou. We talked to dozens of farming families who were being squeezed by middlemen. They were skeptical at first, but when we presented them with a clear contract, better prices, and a long-term purchasing commitment, they agreed. We had turned an enemy's attack into our own opportunity. The Artisans Guild was no longer just a collection of workshops. It had become a complete ecosystem. The following month, the Shanghai International Textile Expo would take place. It was the biggest stage in the industry. The whole world would be watching. Heavenly Cloud would surely be there, probably with a flawed version of Phoenix Fire created by their foreign experts. "Are we ready?" Master Zhang asked me, as we watched the first rolls of Cloud Brocade, woven from silk we had produced ourselves, being carefully packed. "Master," I replied, my heart filled with confidence. We were born for this stage. Shanghai. The city that never sleeps. The massive exhibition center was like a monster of steel and glass, swallowing thousands of people from all over the world. The air inside was thick with the smell of money, ambition, and fierce competition. This was our battlefield. Compared to the grand booths of international corporations, the booth for the Suzhou Artisans Guild looked small and modest. We didn't have giant LED screens or runway models. We just had a space designed like an ancient Suzhou workshop, with wooden looms, colorful spools of thread, and of course, our Cloud Brocade silks displayed like works of art. Directly across a wide aisle from us was the Heavenly Cloud booth. It was 10 times our size, blazing with stage lights and the Phoenix Fire logo projected everywhere. Chairman Guo and Guo Feng were both there, busy entertaining important guests. They looked confident, but I could detect the tension in Chairman Guo's smile. He knew we were here. Our presence was a challenge he couldn't ignore. During the first day of setup, the artisans in our alliance couldn't hide their awe and anxiety. "Lin Wei, can we even compete with them?" one asked, looking towards Heavenly Cloud's colossal booth. "We look like a small canoe next to a yacht." "A canoe may be small," I said, "but it can navigate places a yacht can't reach. Don't look at their size, focus on our quality, let the product speak for itself." I had prepared meticulously for this debut. We didn't just bring a product, we brought a story. Each piece of cloud brocade came with a small tag, bearing the name of the artisan who wove it, the story of its pattern, and even the name of the farmer who raised the silkworms. We wanted customers to understand that they weren't just buying a piece of fabric, they were owning a piece of heritage. The evening before the opening day, after everyone else had left, I stayed behind to check everything one last time. As I was adjusting the lighting on our centerpiece display, I noticed something was wrong. A strange, faint chemical odor lingered in the air. It wasn't the scent of the natural dyes we used. I have an extremely sensitive nose, a skill honed by years in the lab. I walked along the display racks, sniffing like a hound. The smell seemed stronger in the main display area. I checked the silks but saw nothing unusual. My intuition told me something was wrong. Chairman Guo was not the type to sit back and watch us succeed. He had tried to cut off our supplies, he had smeared our name in the media. Using a dirty trick at the expo was perfectly in character for him. I took a small cloth swatch from my kit and discreetly wiped the surface of one of the displayed silks. Then, I returned to my hotel. In my room, I took out the portable chemical testing kit I always carried with me. The result appeared after 15 minutes. My heart skipped a beat. The swatch showed traces of an ammonia-based compound, a chemical that is colorless and odorless at room temperature. But under the heat and intense light of the exhibition spotlights, it would react with our organic dyes, causing the colors to rapidly oxidize and fade, creating ugly yellow stains. Their plan was diabolical. They wouldn't sabotage us overtly. They would let our own glorious spotlights destroy our products right before the eyes of thousands of experts and buyers. We would become the laughingstock of the textile industry. The Suzhou Artisans Guild would die before it was even born. Anger flared inside me, but it was immediately extinguished by a cold calm. This was not the time for anger. This was the time for action. I looked at the clock. 11 p.m. The expo would open at 9 the next morning. I couldn't report it to the organizers. I had no concrete proof of who did it. I couldn't make a scene either. It would only cause a scandal without solving anything. I had only one option. I had to turn the tables. I made a phone call to Master Zhang, asking him and a few of the most trusted artisans to return to the exhibition center immediately. "What's wrong, little Wei?" His voice was worried. "The enemy has made his move," I said. "But we are not going to defend. We are going to set a trap." That night, in our small booth, under the dim lights, we silently executed a daring plan. Chairman Guo thought he was pushing us off a cliff. He had no idea he was just giving us a bigger stage to shine on. The dawn was breaking, and the moment of truth was near. The real show was about to begin. The next morning, our booth opened as scheduled. Everything looked unchanged. The beautiful cloud brocade silks were still hanging elegantly under the spotlights. Master Zhang and the other artisans, despite their inner anxiety, maintained calm and smiling faces, welcoming the first visitors. Only I knew that the silks on display were not our best. They were decoys. The night before, after discovering the plot, my plan was clear. We carefully took down all the chemically tainted silks. In their place, we hung up experimental pieces from our early days silks of decent quality, but not our masterpieces. The real works of art were safely hidden away. Then, I did one more thing. I secretly installed a micro camera, aimed directly at our main display. I needed to record the moment the silk self-destructed under the lights. At 9:30, Chairman Guo and Guo Feng took a tour of the expo, probably to inspect and await the drama. As they passed our booth, Chairman Guo gave me a knowing look, a half-smile of a victor. I responded with a polite nod. He had no idea he was walking into a trap. At 10 o'clock, the crowd of visitors began to swell. Fashion experts, designers, and representatives from major brands started to notice our unique booth. They were impressed by the beauty of cloud brocade, and the story of our artisans' alliance intrigued them. And then, it began. Just as I predicted, under the heat of more than 20 spotlights, the chemical reaction started, slowly, Yellowish stains began to appear on the silk's surface. At first, they were faint, but after just 15 minutes, they became obvious. The vibrant colors started to fade, looking sickly. A famous Italian designer was touching a piece of silk when she flinched. "What is this?" she exclaimed. "The color is changing." Whispers started to ripple through the crowd. People began to point. The initial admiration quickly turned into disappointment and suspicion. "Poor quality silk," someone said. "Looks are deceiving." "A shame for such a nice idea," another added. I saw Guo Feng standing in the opposite booth, trying to suppress a smug grin. He and his father must be gloating, thinking their scheme had worked perfectly. At that exact moment, I stepped onto our small presentation platform. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen," I said loudly, my voice clear and calm, capturing the attention of the bewildered crowd. "Thank you for your interest in the Suzhou Artisans Guild. I am Lin Wei, the founder of this alliance." I signaled to Master Zhang. He and the other artisans began to take down the deteriorating silks. "Many of you are probably wondering what is happening to our products," I continued. "You're thinking that these are faulty, low-quality products, and you are correct. These are indeed faulty products." The crowd was stunned. No one expected me to admit it so frankly. "But," I said, my voice hardening, "they are not faulty due to our manufacturing process. They are faulty due to an act of intentional sabotage." I turned on the large screen behind me. The video from the micro-camera began to play, fast-forwarding the process of the silks discoloring under the lights. "What you are seeing is the result of a chemical agent secretly sprayed onto our products last night," I explained. "A chemical that destroys color under high heat. This was not an accident. This was a conspiracy to ruin our reputation on our most important debut." A collective gasp swept through the booth. All eyes turned towards the Heavenly Cloud booth. Chairman Guo's face was ashen. Guo Feng looked panicked. "They can destroy our products," I said, my voice full of emotion. "But they cannot destroy the talent and soul of the Suzhou artisans. And now, allow us to present the true masterpieces of cloud brocade." The side curtains of our small stage opened. Master Zhang and the artisans, dressed in traditional attire, solemnly brought out new silks. The real silks. If the previous silks were beautiful, these were breathtaking. They were vibrant, alive, radiating an aura of perfection. Under the spotlights, they didn't fade. On the contrary, they seemed to shimmer with an even more brilliant, ethereal glow. The hall was silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. The Italian designer from before stepped forward, touching the new silk with reverence. "Magnifico, a masterpiece," she declared. I didn't need to say another word. The performance was perfect. We had not only cleared our name, we had turned a sabotage attempt into a spectacular demonstration of integrity and talent. We had shown the world the stark contrast between dirty tricks and true artistry. Journalists started to surround me. Potential buyers crowded to get a look at the products. Our small booth suddenly became the epicenter of the entire expo. I glanced over at the Heavenly Cloud booth. Chairman Guo was hastily leaving, his head down to avoid the eyes and camera lenses. Guo Feng stood frozen in the middle of his empty booth, looking like a lost child. The game was over, and it was checkmate. The Shanghai Expo was a resounding success beyond our wildest dreams. The Suzhou Artisans Guild not only won the award for most innovative design, but more importantly, we won the hearts of customers and the respect of the industry. Orders poured in, not just from high-fashion brands in Europe, but from art collectors and luxury hotels in the Middle East. Our small workshops were suddenly operating at full capacity. The story of our spectacular exposé spread faster than wildfire. The press called us David, who defeated Goliath. The scandal completely destroyed Heavenly Cloud's reputation. The expo organizers launched an official investigation. Although there was no direct evidence to convict Chairman Guo, the video and the chemical analysis were enough for everyone to draw their own conclusions. Heavenly Cloud was banned from the expo for the next 5 years, a death sentence for an international brand. The echo of the collapse was even louder. Investors began to dump Heavenly Cloud's stock. The company's value plummeted. Long-term partners canceled their contracts. Banks called in their loans. The empire that Chairman Guo had built on ruthlessness and deceit was now crumbling like a sandcastle against the tide. The team of foreign experts he had hired also gave up. They couldn't replicate my catalyst because it wasn't just a chemical formula. It was the crystallization of a deep understanding of silk structure, something that could only be gained after years of living and breathing the craft. Their version of Phoenix Fire was a soulless imitation that couldn't fool discerning eyes. A few months later, the news reached me. Heavenly Cloud had filed for bankruptcy. The factories were sealed. Thousands of workers lost their jobs. I felt a tinge of sadness. I had never wished for this. My goal was to seek justice for myself and revive the craft, not to drive an entire company to its death, but that was the price of one man's arrogance and greed. Chairman Guo lost everything. His villa, his luxury cars, and what little respect he had left. He faced a series of lawsuits from shareholders and partners. The old fox was finally caught in his own trap. One afternoon, as I was inspecting a new shipment at the workshop, Master Zhang handed me a letter. "Someone sent this for you," he said. The letter had no return address. I opened it. Inside, the handwriting was messy and shaky. "Lin Wei, I was wrong. I was arrogant and foolish. I was blinded by my father's large shadow and thought I was entitled to everything without effort. You could have destroyed me, but you didn't. You just showed me the truth. Thank you. And I'm sorry." There was no signature, but I knew it was from Guo Feng. This letter, to me, was more valuable than all the praise from the press. It showed that at least one person had learned his lesson. I later heard that Guo Feng had left Suzhou. He moved to another city and started over with an ordinary job in a logistics company, completely unrelated to silk and brocade. Perhaps, for the first time in his life, he was truly earning his own living. The war was over. There were no loud cheers of victory. Only the peace of our work and the joy of seeing our workshops thrive. The Artisans Guild was not just a successful business, it had become a symbol. It inspired craftsmen in other fields to stand up, unite, and protect their heritage. I had reclaimed what was mine, but I realized the greatest reward was not recognition or money. It was seeing the smile on Master Zhang's face as he taught the craft to young apprentices. It was hearing the rhythmic click-clack of the looms echoing through the old alleys once more. I started this journey to find justice for one phoenix. In the end, I had helped an entire flock of them rise together from the ashes. 2 years passed. The Suzhou Artisans Guild had become a world-leading brand for handcrafted silk. The name Cloud Brocade was synonymous with supreme quality and exquisite artistry. We opened a small training school where veteran masters like Zhang could pass on their skills to the younger generation, ensuring the flame of the craft would never die. The lives of the families in the alliance had changed. They had stable incomes, self-confidence, and most importantly, pride in their work. I was no longer a lone scientist in a lab. I spent most of my time working with the artisans, researching new natural dyeing techniques from ancient herbs and developing patterns inspired by Suzhou's history and culture. I had rediscovered the pure joy of creation. One day, I had a business trip to Shenzhen, a modern tech hub, the complete opposite of ancient Suzhou. After a meeting, I stopped at a small coffee shop to rest. As I was reviewing some documents, a familiar voice rang out. "One iced Americano, no sugar, sir." I looked up. The waiter standing before me was Guo Feng. He had changed a lot. Gone was the designer suit and the arrogant expression. He wore the coffee shop's uniform and looked thinner and more rugged. But in his eyes, there was a calmness I had never seen before. He recognized me too. Surprise flickered across his face, followed by a hint of embarrassment. "Mr. Lin," he said softly. "Hello, Guo Feng," I replied, smiling. "What a coincidence." "Please have a seat," he said, regaining his professional composure. "Your coffee will be right out." A little while later, he brought the coffee to my table. "It's not busy today." "May I sit for a moment?" he asked. "Of course," I said. We sat in silence for a moment. "I heard your alliance is very successful," he began. "I saw Cloud Brocade in an international fashion magazine. It was beautiful." "Thank you. It's the work of many people." "And my father," he hesitated. "He has aged a lot." After everything ended, he returned to his hometown to live a quiet life. Sometimes he just sits for hours, staring at an old piece of silk, saying nothing. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I genuinely meant it. "No, don't be," Guo Feng said, shaking his head. It was a lesson that both he and I had to learn, no matter how expensive. I used to think the world ran on money and power. I was wrong. You showed me that. He looked down at his hands. "I've been working here for a year and a half. Started with cleaning, now I'm a barista. This is the first money in my life that I've earned with my own 2 hands. It's not much, but it feels more real than anything I've ever had." "That's a good start," I said. "Do you hate me, Mr. Lin?" he asked suddenly, looking me straight in the eye. I thought for a moment. I was angry. But hatred is a heavy burden. I chose to put it down so I could fly higher. "You are young, Guo Feng. You made mistakes, but you've also paid the price for them. What matters is what you do next." He nodded, seeming to understand. "I'm enrolling in an evening course for business administration. I want to learn properly. Maybe one day, I'll build something of my own. Something small but mine." "I believe you will," I said. I paid for the coffee and stood up. Before leaving, I said, "If you're ever back in Suzhou, come visit our workshops. There are many good things to learn." Guo Feng looked at me, his eyes shining with sincere gratitude. "I will, Mr. Lin. Thank you." I walked out of the coffee shop and into the bustling streets of Shenzhen. This unexpected encounter felt like a final knot, tying the entire story together perfectly. It wasn't a story of revenge, but of redemption and rebirth, not just for me, but for those who were once my enemies. Destiny is like a silk thread. Sometimes it gets tangled and twisted, but in the end, it is woven into a complete tapestry. Some people play the role of the strong, steady warp. Others are the colorful weft. All are necessary to create the masterpiece. I smiled. My phoenix had flown through the storm. And now, the sky before it was clear and vast. Success brings a sweet intoxication, but it also comes with a persistent headache. The Suzhou Artisans Guild had become a sought-after name. Our cloud brocade silks were not just fabrics, they were statements of heritage and sophistication. But when you create something too beautiful, the world doesn't just admire it, it tries to copy it. The problem began with emails from customers. At first, it was just a few isolated cases. A collector in Paris complained that the silk he had just bought from a reputable gallery faded slightly after dry cleaning. A hotel in Dubai reported that their cloud brocade bedding set felt coarser after a few months of use. I personally examined the returned samples. At first glance, they looked identical to our products, the patterns, the sheen, the feel. But when I put them under laboratory analysis, I discovered subtle differences. The silk fiber structure showed signs of slight damage, and most importantly, the catalyst compound in the dye contained some foreign elements, a cheaper, unstable version. They were forgeries, frighteningly sophisticated forgeries. These were not cheap knockoffs from the market. Whoever was behind them clearly had deep knowledge of chemistry and textiles. They had managed to replicate nearly 80% of my technology. They were good enough to fool non-expert buyers, but bad enough to destroy the reputation we had built with our sweat and tears. A ghost was cloaking itself in our brocade. I called an emergency meeting with the artisans of the Alliance. When I presented my findings, the atmosphere in the room grew heavy. The euphoria of success vanished, replaced by anxiety and anger. "How is this possible?" Master Zhang slammed his hand lightly on the table, his voice filled with indignation. "Your formula is a secret, isn't it, little Wei?" "It is," I replied. "They don't have my exact formula. They've reverse-engineered our product. They analyzed its chemical composition and tried to recreate it. They haven't succeeded completely, but they're close enough to cause damage." "So what do we do?" another workshop owner asked. "Sue them? We don't even know who they are." That was the problem. These counterfeit products had no specific brand. They were being funneled into the market through intermediary channels, small-time traders looking to make a quick profit. Tracing them to the source was like finding a needle in a haystack. We decided to implement some immediate defensive measures. We redesigned our packaging, adding anti-counterfeiting labels with QR codes that could trace the origin of each product, clearly stating the artisan's name and production date. We also issued official statements on our website and social media, warning customers about the fakes and providing guides on how to identify them. But I knew these were only temporary solutions. The snake was already in the house, and fixing the fence wouldn't kill it. This enemy was more dangerous than Chairman Guo. He was a cunning old fox, but he acted openly. This one was an invisible ghost, attacking us from the shadows. My worst nightmare was the possibility of an insider. Had someone in the Alliance, tempted by money, sold us out? I immediately dismissed the thought. I believed in these people, who had gone through thick and thin with me. But the seed of doubt, once sown, is very difficult to uproot. I spent many nights in the lab, trying to analyze the fake samples more deeply, hoping to find a chemical fingerprint that could point to their origin. I had to find out who they were. One late evening, as I was preparing to leave the office, my phone rang with an unknown number. I usually don't answer unknown numbers, but some instinct urged me to pick up. "Hello," I said. The other end was silent for a few seconds, with only the sound of soft breathing. Then a voice spoke, a voice I hadn't heard in 2 years, but still recognized instantly. "Mr. Lin, it's me, Guo Feng." I was frozen. I think I know who is making those fake silks." Guo Feng's call was like a stone thrown into a rippling pond, creating ever-widening circles of doubt and unease. Why him? What did he want? Was this another trap, a new play staged by the remnants of the Guo family? "Where are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Shenzhen." "I'm still at my logistics job," he replied quickly. "Mr. Lin, I know you have every reason not to trust me, but please hear me out. My company recently got a fairly large contract to ship textiles from a factory in Foshan, Guangdong Province. The goods were described as high-end decorative silk fabric, but their packaging was very secretive, and the destinations were small distributors across Asia, none of whom are on the partner lists of major brands. Foshan, famous for its ceramics, but it also had a few high-tech textile facilities. That doesn't prove anything, I said. It doesn't, Guo Feng admitted. But one time, a crate was damaged during transport. I saw what was inside, that pattern. I'll never forget the cloud brocade pattern I saw at the Shanghai Expo. And there was a very specific chemical smell. The smell of failure. Exactly like the smell of the batches I ruined at Heavenly Cloud back in the day. His words made me pause. The smell of failure. That was a detail only an insider would know. Guo Feng, with his painful experience, was perhaps the only person who could recognize the flawed version of the Phoenix Fire technology by scent alone. Do you have any information about that factory? Its name is Golden Cocoon Textiles, a fairly new company but with huge investments. The person in charge, according to business records, is a man named Liang Kai. Liang Kai. The name meant nothing to me. Mr. Lin, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, Guo Feng continued, his voice pleading. But I feel partly responsible. It was my incompetence that allowed your technology to be exposed, even just the surface of it. Please give me a chance to make amends. I can get access to their shipping schedules and distributor lists. I was silent. My reason told me to be cautious. But my intuition said that Guo Feng was telling the truth. He was no longer the arrogant young master. His voice carried a maturity and a sincere remorse. Send me everything you have, I finally said. I'll verify it myself. The call ended, but my unease did not. Should I tell the Alliance about this? If I did, the internal suspicion I was trying to quell might flare up. Some might think I was still in contact with the Guo family. I decided to keep it to myself for the time being. This was my fight. A few days later, an encrypted email from Guo Feng arrived. Inside was what he had promised. Shipping schedules, names of shell companies, and, crucially, detailed information about Liang Kai. When I read Liang Kai's profile, my heart nearly stopped. Liang Kai, 45, PhD in chemistry, former head of R&D at Splendid Textiles, a major competitor of Heavenly Cloud 10 years ago. I remembered the story. Splendid Textiles had been taken over and subsequently dismantled by Chairman Guo through financial maneuvering. Liang Kai had lost everything in that takeover. He had vanished from the textile industry ever since. All the pieces fit together. Liang Kai had the technical expertise and the motive for revenge, not against me, but against the legacy of Chairman Guo, which was now tied to me and the Alliance. He didn't just want to make money. He wanted to destroy everything the Guos had built, and everything that had risen from its ruins. And he probably wasn't acting alone. To reverse engineer my technology so quickly, he needed inside information. Not from our Alliance, but from the remnants of Heavenly Cloud. Someone from the old lab, someone who had my original notes, must have sold the information to Liang Kai. The first crack wasn't in our Alliance. It originated from the collapsed empire of my old foe. While I was lost in these thoughts, more bad news arrived. Master Zhang called me, his voice fraught with worry. Little Wei, something happened at Ah Ming's workshop. The entire shipment of cloud brocade for a client in Italy has been destroyed. Someone broke in last night and poured acid on it. This time, it was no longer a distant ghost. The enemy had struck at our home. This incident, combined with the information from Guo Feng, revealed a terrifying truth. We weren't just dealing with a counterfeiter. We were facing an organized, ruthless enemy who was escalating his actions. And they were very close. The sabotage at Ah Ming's workshop sent a real shockwave through the Alliance. The fear was more tangible than ever. It was no longer a business issue. It had become a matter of personal safety. The artisans began to look at each other with wary eyes. The seed of suspicion I had feared had finally sprouted. It must be an insider, one person exclaimed during the meeting. How did they know Ah Ming's delivery schedule? How did they get into the workshop? I knew I could no longer remain silent. There is no insider among us, I said, my voice firm, trying to reassure everyone. Our enemy doesn't need an insider. Production schedules, information about the workshops, all of this can be monitored if they are determined. This is an act of psychological warfare. They want us to doubt each other, to disintegrate from within. I decided I had to act. I needed to meet Guo Feng, not over the phone or by email, but face to face. I flew to Shenzhen the next day, telling only Master Zhang that I was going to handle some important business. I arranged to meet Guo Feng in a public place, a crowded seaside park. Caution was never a bad thing. He arrived on time, still in his coffee shop uniform, likely just off his shift. He looked tired, but his eyes were focused. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I need to know everything you know, Guofeng." I got straight to the point. "And I need to know why you are helping me." We walked along the coastline. Guofeng told me his story. After leaving Suzhou, he had gone through a difficult time. The shock of his family's downfall and his own guilt had almost broken him. It was the manual labor, the small but honest wages, that had pulled him back up. It taught him the value of hard work and humility. "When I started at this logistics company," he explained, "I just wanted a normal life. But when I discovered Golden Cocoon's shipments, I realized the past hadn't let me go. Liang Kai is taking advantage of the chaos after Heavenly Cloud collapsed. Many talented technicians from the old lab were left unemployed. I bet he recruited some of them people who had the knowledge and a grudge against my father." His explanation was logical. "A team built from the ashes of Heavenly Cloud. Why help me?" I asked the most important question again. Guofeng stopped and looked out at the sea. "Because I owe you, and I owe it to myself. My father built an empire on lies and deceit. I was once a part of it. The result was that everything fell apart. You are different. You built your alliance on honesty, talent, and respect. If I let someone like Liang Kai, another man full of hatred and deceit, destroy what you've built, then it's as if I'm still walking my father's old path. I don't want that anymore." I looked deep into his eyes. I saw sincerity. The young master of the past was truly gone. The person standing before me was a man trying to reclaim his own dignity. "I believe you," I said. "So what's the next step?" "Liang Kai is very careful," Guofeng said. "His factory is heavily guarded. We can't just break in, but I have an idea. As the shipping company, I have the right to request a random inspection of packaging and storage procedures to ensure transport standards. It's a legitimate regulation. I can get inside his factory. Legally. What are you planning to do in there?" "I'll carry a micro air quality analyzer. If they are in mass production, the air in the workshop will definitely have traces of the catalyst compound. If we can get that evidence, along with the shipping records, we can report them to the market supervision authorities." It was a dangerous plan. If he were discovered, Guofeng could be in serious trouble. "It's too risky for you," I said. "The biggest risk of my life was doing nothing at all," he replied, his gaze firm. "Let me do this. You stay in Suzhou and protect the artisans. I will be your eyes and ears here." This unexpected encounter had forged an even more unexpected alliance. An alliance between me and the son of my old enemy. We came from two different worlds, had once stood on opposite sides of a war, but now shared a common goal: to protect true art from the saboteurs in the shadows. I flew back to Suzhou with a clear plan. Guofeng would attack from the inside, and I would prepare a much larger stage to expose Liang Kai to the entire world. The cat-and-mouse game was about to end. Our plan was executed with quiet precision. Guofeng, under the pretext of a procedural inspection, successfully gained entry into the Golden Cocoon factory. The microanalyzer hidden in his pen did its job perfectly. The air quality results confirmed a high concentration of the chemical compounds characteristic of the flawed catalyst. It was irrefutable proof that they were mass-producing counterfeit goods. Meanwhile, back in Suzhou, I didn't sit idly by. I knew a legal case could drag on for years. I needed a fatal blow, a strike against Liang Kai's public reputation. The Asia Textile Industry Summit was about to be held in Hangzhou. It was an event that brought together all the big names, top experts, and the media. And I knew that Liang Kai, as the director of the rising star Golden Cocoon, would surely attend to promote his brand. I registered to give a keynote speech at the summit. The title, "The Soul of the Fiber: Identifying and Protecting Heritage in the Digital Age." On the day of the summit, the atmosphere was formal and grand. I saw Liang Kai sitting in the third row. A man in his 40s, with an intellectual look and glasses, he looked nothing like a malicious mastermind. He even nodded at me politely. When it was my turn on stage, I didn't begin my speech with charts or business figures. I began with the story of Master Zhang, of his hands that had been weaving silk for 60 years. I spoke about the silkworm farmers, about the soul of the Suzhou land imbued in every thread. Only after I had captured the empathy of the entire audience did I move to the main point. That heritage, I said, my voice growing serious, is under attack. Not by time, but by deceit. Today, with modern technology, one can copy almost anything. But there is one thing they can never copy: the durability of quality and the integrity of the artisan. I gave a signal, and two assistants brought two identical-looking pieces of cloud brocade silk onto the stage. "Before you are two pieces of silk," I said. "One is a product of the Suzhou Artisans Guild. The other is a highly sophisticated fake currently circulating in the market. To the naked eye, you can barely tell the difference. But today, I will show you where the difference lies. I switched on a specialized ultraviolet UV lamp. Under normal light, the two silks looked the same, but when the UV light hit them, an astonishing truth was revealed. On our genuine silk, the patterns appeared with a soft, uniform glow. This was due to my organic catalyst reacting stably. But on the fake silk, strange chemical traces began to fluoresce chaotically, creating blotchy, mold-like spots of blue light. Their cheap catalyst was exposed under the light of truth. The hall buzzed with murmurs. I saw the color drain from Liang Kai's face. The real silk, I continued, will grow softer with use. Its colors will deepen. The fake silk, after a short time, will become coarse and faded, because the protein structure of the fiber has been destroyed from within. Its creator is not just deceiving customers. They are killing the very soul of the silk. I didn't name Liang Kai or Golden Cocoon. I didn't have to. I just presented the facts and gave everyone the tool to verify it themselves. I was arming the customers, the distributors. My speech ended in a thundering ovation. During the break, a crowd of journalists and experts surrounded our small exhibition area, where we had prepared UV lamps for them to conduct their own tests. Just then, my phone vibrated. It was Guo Feng. "Mr. Lin, I've sent all the evidence to the authorities. They are on their way to the Golden Cocoon factory now." I looked towards Liang Kai. He was trying to slip out of the hall but was blocked by reporters. Questions were fired at him like hammer blows. "Mr. Liang, do you have any comment on the UV testing method? Does the Golden Cocoon Company use that type of chemical?" The man in the shadows had finally been dragged into the light, not through a direct confrontation, but through science, truth, and the power of the community. The trap we had set had not only caught the tiger, but had also skinned it for the whole world to see. The fallout from the Hangzhou summit was even bigger than the Shanghai Expo 2 years prior. On the same day, authorities, armed with evidence from Guo Feng, raided the Golden Cocoon factory and discovered a massive counterfeit production line. Liang Kai was arrested shortly after. The investigation uncovered the entire network. Just as Guo Feng had suspected, Liang Kai had recruited several former technicians from Heavenly Cloud, who possessed both expertise and resentment. The sabotage at Aming's workshop was also solved. It was carried out by local thugs hired to terrorize us. The fake cloud brocade case became a major industry scandal, a costly lesson in business ethics. The Suzhou Artisans Guild brand emerged from the storm stronger than ever. Now, we were known not just for quality, but for integrity. The UV lamp test became an unofficial industry standard for identifying high-end silk. We had inadvertently created a revolution in product transparency. A month later, I received a call from Guo Feng. "Mr. Lin, I'm about to leave Shenzhen," he said. "I've quit my job." "Where are you going?" I asked. "I'm going back to school," he replied, his voice full of excitement. "But not for business administration. I'm going to study sustainable supply chain management for craft industries." This whole affair showed me something. There are many other traditional craft villages in China struggling to bring their products to the world. I think I can help them. I was truly happy for him. Guo Feng had not only atoned for his mistakes, he had found his own purpose. He had turned his experiences, both good and bad, into a path to help others. "When you graduate," I said, "contact me. Our alliance always has room for talented and dedicated people like you." That autumn, Suzhou was as beautiful as a painting. Master Zhang and I sat drinking tea in his workshop courtyard, watching the golden leaves of the plane trees drift to the ground. "Finally, everything is peaceful," the master said, stroking his silver beard. "Little Wei, there were times I thought our craft of hand-weaving was finished, but you proved me wrong." "It wasn't me, master," I replied. "It was all of us. I was just the one who connected the individual threads to form a strong fabric." "Do you know what the greatest legacy you've created is?" he asked. I thought of the patent, the cloud brocade brand, the successful business model. Master Zhang shook his head, as if reading my mind. "Not those things. Your greatest legacy is those children." He pointed towards the workshop, where a group of teenagers, the children and grandchildren of the artisans, were attentively learning how to spin thread from their elders. Their eyes shone with curiosity and pride. They no longer saw this as an old, outdated profession. They saw a future and respect in it. I suddenly understood. The undying legacy wasn't a chemical formula or a weaving technique. It wasn't found in patent certificates or awards. The real legacy was the flame of passion, passed from one generation to the next. It was continuity. I had started this journey to seek justice for myself, I had fought giants and ghosts. But now, looking at those children, I realized my war had ended long ago. For the rest of my life, my mission was no longer to fight, but to nurture. I took a sip of tea, its flavor fragrant and sweet. In my ears was the steady, rhythmic click-clack of the shuttles on the looms. It was not the sound of the past. It was the eternal heartbeat of an undying legacy.